I am Petr Roubal of the Prague Institute of Contemporary History, and I am here to introduce the last Vodcast in our series dedicated to the project European History Reloaded, where we essentially deal with the second life of audiovisual archival material. In the first Vodcast, we heard from the project leader Ego Müller and A.B. Weisdorf on various practices of appropriation of the audiovisual archival heritage. In the second Vodcast, our colleagues from Sweden, Maria Eriksson and Pelle Snickers, talked about experimental digital methods for identifying instances of video reuse. And today, I will be asking Adela Gyurichova, senior researcher at our institute and one of the principal investigators of the European History Reloaded project, about the impact of the popular use of audiovisual materials on the memory culture in Central Europe. Adela, you lead a team of experienced historians at the Institute of Contemporary History. Are historians in general familiar with analyzing audiovisual materials?
Well, only to a very limited extent. We are used to applying historical analysis to interviews or recordings of political meetings, even feature films. But these are mostly still professional media productions. Whereas this whole popular participatory culture done by people who are users and producers at the same time, Andrew Hoskins calls them that producage, this whole big part of audiovisual culture seems to be eluding us, and many historians are pretending it's not happening. But out there are amateur archives of digitized videos and photographs, historical photographs, popping up, every day. And there are communities of people around historical or posts on history by individual users and so on. So we decided in this project that we would stop pretending it's not out there, and we would seriously try to find new ways how historiography should define what is authentic historical material source and how to curate it in the digital age.
Your team focused on how does the digital technology interact with the history and popular memory of communist dictatorships in East Central Europe. How did you do it?
We first had to collect a large volume of so-called appropriations. We used this concept to actually include all different creative approaches to audiovisual digitized material. So it can be just posting a historical video on your Facebook wall and describing it, but it can also be a more sophisticated remix, a digital manipulation, even a deepfake. And once we had that, then we used an analytical grid, a toolkit which helped us compare the original and the transformed version as to its content, the formal aspect, and also the message, the position taken and evoked. And we were looking for cases in which through that manipulation, some established historical narratives would be transformed. But we found something completely different. The historical narratives seemed to be pretty much the same, but what changed were much more general phenomena such as collective memory or historical consciousness.
So this is really interesting that the historical narratives are stable while the collective memory is changing and shifting. Could you specify what is the nature of these changes?
Mm-hmm. We found three main principles. The first finding was that the source and its authenticity is actually not important to users, whereas it's so important to historians. Neither do they miss any exceptionality of the material. On the contrary, the material needs to sound and look familiar, and then users share it and relate to it. And that's exactly what this famous Russian YouTuber Enjoykin knows, and that's the way how he uses the material.
Идут последние дни уходящего года. Этот год был тяжелым для братских народов. Как вы знаете, в этом году нам пришлось пережить войну.
then the second finding was that people build communities around certain supposedly shared memories. For example, escaping through the Iron Curtain or being oppressed by communist police, although neither they themselves or their families are technically any related to such a memory. So they do identify with it, although they have nothing in common with it. That's nothing new. We know that from history. We know that collective memories can be built by intellectuals, by leaders, to actually revive or even artificially build certain communities, for example, nations or different activist groups. But the difference here with memories spread through the digital technology is that you actually connect with other people just through your activity, through your presence in the network, and you don't need any geographic, ethnic or other common background. And that used to be the substance of collective memory, and it's not today. And then the third finding is that any of the triplet of components, that is content, form and position, can be sort of switched off by these users. So you can have a footage of people and cars just strolling through an East Berlin street, and no position whatsoever is taken toward the East German Communist Party in the 1980s. The user is not interested because you are only sort of attracted by the slow pace and by this desertedness of the landscape, which fits the music you mix with it. So to conclude, in spite of this huge popularity of history online, and in spite of this hyper-connective illusion of unlimited access to historical sources, you sort of tend to lose the sense of history as we used to know it. Because the technology really allows you to strongly and easily identify with those memorialized, but it does not support any awareness of historical facts, of historical contexts and of all the complexities of history. And that's actually what used to be the building stone of historical consciousness as we used to understand it.
So thank you, Adela, for all the answers, and thank you for all the attention.